Kayla, let me know. Are we ready to go, Kayla?
You're now live, Your Worship.
Oh, good. Thank you very much, Kayla. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome all members of council and members of our staff, as well as those that are viewing us at home. Council, you should know that the Deputy Mayor is not able to be with us tonight. He is not feeling that great for some reason, so he's taken the time off, and we hope that he recovers, and he will be joining us again at another time. So we'll get by tonight with the members of council that we have. So our deputy clerk is clerk of the session here tonight. So it's nice to have Brenda with us. I want to thank her for everything that she's done over the last few months. And thank you for being here tonight. Now, council, before we get underway, just to review again, we just came back from an in-camera session. And so we're about to get to our regular session. But before that, I do have a couple things I do want to say. First of all, I want to acknowledge that I received an email midday on Sunday from a resident in our community who requested that the flags in Clearview Township be lowered in recognition of the ongoing and developing disaster that we've heard about in Kamloops, British Columbia, where the 215 burials were found of unmarked graves of young people at that residential school. It's a heart-wrenching situation. And so I immediately contacted our CAO and asked him if he would comply. And I want to thank our CAO for directing all of our flags to be lowered across Clearview Township at this time. So council, this is obviously a very difficult, heart-wrenching thing. And let's just hope that our country learns and our country moves ahead, and we continue to have respect. Council, let's move on with our agenda. We have item number 2 on our agenda tonight is our approval of the agenda for the 5:30 session. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda dated May 31st, 2021 as presented. And I have a mover and seconder on that motion. Councillor Leishman, Councillor Walker, any additions or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. The agenda is adopted. Item 3 is disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Is there anybody with any disclosures for tonight's agenda? Content in the meeting? It's all right. Seeing none. If there's anything comes up during the meeting, please bring it forward. We'll deal with it appropriately at this time. Council, item number 4 is public participation. We did receive this morning a message on our web service to allow us, or to allow a resident to ask a question. The question was posed by Norm Campbell. I won't read the entire thing because honestly the question was a little bit confusing, but it had to do with a bylaw issue about a boat on a neighboring property. So from reading the question, I would ask Mr. Campbell to contact our bylaw department if there's a concern about something happening in the neighborhood as far as a property matter. And he could contact our bylaw department through our website at clearview.ca. And if you do not have any satisfaction from that conversation, I would encourage you to reach out to John Ferguson. He's our CAO, and he, of course, will answer for anything that's happening with our staff. So, Mr. CAO, if you hear from Mr. Campbell or from our bylaw officer about this issue, it's not something that your council can actually deal with at this time through public participation, but I do appreciate you bringing forward the question, Mr. Campbell. All right. And again, just to remind the public, they can always fill out the form online at clearview.ca, where there's a public participation form. That's the best way to reach us during a council meeting for public participation. You can always email each member of council, which is at council@clearview.ca. Council, deputations and presentations. We have our community safety and wellness well-being plan that Katie Warner has put together. Hello, oh, there's the chief. Rory is here. Rory's been working on this project on our behalf. So perhaps, Chief, you could outline that for me. And I'm not sure if Kayla has our guest lined up. I'll hand it over to you, Chief. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do see Carrie on there. So just a little bit of overview here. In January 2019, municipalities were legislated by the province to adopt a community safety and well-being plan that needed to be implemented by July 2021. So as you're aware, that is fastly approaching. So Township of Clearview, along with the Township of Springwater and the towns of Collingwood and Wasaga Beach, partnered together and hired a consultant, Carrie Warner from Vail Consulting. She has completed the work on the project as well as put together a brief presentation for you here tonight. So I am going to turn it over to Carrie for presentation this evening.
All right, thank you very much, Chief. Carrie, welcome aboard. Glad to see you pop up on my screen. And I'll turn the floor over to you, and then perhaps members of council will have questions at the end of your presentation.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invite tonight. I suspect the presentation will miraculously appear. There we go, wonderful, thank you so much. So we'll move to our next slide. I'm happy to be presenting on your community safety and well-being plan. So over the next few minutes, we're going to be looking at why we were doing this planning, who the partners are involved in this planning, and the process to date, as well as the proposed process moving forward, and the areas of risk identified across the county, and then the ones local to your plan, as well as what our next steps will be. So next slide, please. So there's really two pieces to this. There's the mandate, which is under Bill 175. Municipal councils are required to prepare, adopt, and post their community safety and well-being plan on or before July 1st, 2021. And then there's the why it makes sense to do planning like this. So we know that often police find themselves responding to calls that are complex, but not criminal in nature with no chargeable offenses. And just because the police are available 24/7 doesn't mean that they're the most responsible or most appropriate partner to be responding to some of these calls. So really, if done well, community safety and well-being planning will unite partners on intersectoral strategies that address social development priorities. So if you look at that bullseye on your screen, you can see the outer ring is green, and that's social development. So if we focus our attention on social development priorities, then we're going to shrink those other circles, and that's really what we want. We know there's always going to be a role for incident response and risk intervention and prevention, but to the best of our ability, we really want to focus on root cause from an upstream approach. Next slide, please. So this slide is really just wanting to highlight that diversity, equity, and inclusion, and involving those with lived experience underpins how we will approach the planning and the implementation of the strategies in the plan. Next slide, please. So these are your planning partners, and in the light gray, those are the memberships in each of these kind of groups. And then the darker gray is really looking at their roles and responsibilities. So if we go from left to right, we have the GMCC, and that group is in place now, and it has been in place since the beginning of planning. The chief sits on that group, as well as the other members of this planning group, the municipalities. And they're really responsible for the oversight and the governance of this local plan. And then forming in phase 2, so that's after July 1st, you'd have that local South Sturgeon Bay and Springwater local planning table. And it's going to be reflective of, the areas of risk. So you'd have members that can kind of speak to those areas of risk, as well as an Indigenous partner, municipalities, those with lived experience, and your police as well. And they're really going to be doing the heavy lifting, leading the local implementation of the plan, like the strategies in the plan. And then you have a steering committee, again, forming after July 1st. And so this group, this plan is one of 5 plans. There's 4 other groups. And so the steering committee will be comprised of 1 representative from each of the local tables, as well as some of those other organizations within the county that have a mandate around community safety and well-being. So we think of like our public health partners, maybe the county of Simcoe, and then your police partners, and you would include fire in that as well. And they're really the direct connection to the advisory body. This group, it says steering committee, and I don't want that to throw you off thinking that there's some regional oversight or governance of your local plan. That really rests with the local plan, the GMCC, but some of the administrative pieces that you'd want to have, kind of consistent across the board, that's really what they're going to be focusing on. And then you have the advisory body, and they've been in place since the beginning as well. And these are your subject matter experts. These are the partners that are already delivering on a lot of this mandate. They're your leads around mental health, your leads around housing or access, employment, education, those areas of risk that we're going to touch on in an upcoming slide. And then you have any local planning tables that are already in existence. We want to make sure that we're looping them into this planning, that we're not, running interference or duplicating any efforts, that we're just optimizing the work that's already going on as well in some of those groups. Next slide, please. So what is the role of municipalities? Well, in phase one, it was really to prepare and adopt and post your plan. So if you decide to do so tonight, you will definitely meet that July 1st mandate and deadline. I apologize for the dog in the back. I was hoping that he would be quiet, but there's no guarantees, not these days. Phase two, if you look at 1 through 5, that's really speaking to working as equal partners alongside those community partners that I've mentioned on the previous slides, and supporting the implementation efforts of the strategies identified in your plan. And as far as the reporting back to the ministry, that might feel like, oh, I don't really know what I'm reporting on. But the good news is that input is really going to be driven by the local table and the steering committee. Next slide, please. So this is looking at how we approached phase one, and it was really evidence-based and informed by data. So, there's so many things that we could determine as an area of risk. It was almost like everything's on the A list. There is no B list. So we really had to go through a very comprehensive prioritization process. And we kind of engaged our public health partners because they have a great system for this. It's called the Prioritization Matrix, and it's detailed in the plan that you would have received. And so that helped identify the areas of risk through data, comparative data, seeing what was an issue in this community. And then we validated that through stakeholder engagement. And so we did over 95 key informant interviews, as well as 16 plus presentations to different groups that are already, very connected and doing work in this space, just to make sure that we got it right. And then the last piece we did was between mid-February and mid-March of this year was when we were looking at kind of building these strategies out and baking them into the plan, making sure that we got the public's response, the residents' response, and their thoughts on it as far as, how we move forward with strategies. Next slide, please. So these are the 8 areas of risk that were identified across the county, and each planning group, so this is a planning group, each planning group is looking at identifying in their local plans between 3 and 4 of these areas of risk. And there are some overlap. So you'll see that on an upcoming slide. Interesting, but probably not surprising, all 5 planning groups identified mental health and addictions as a priority. And 4 to 5 identified housing. It's not that the 5th didn't identify it, it's just that they had another area of risk that they felt they wanted to work on in advance of that. So we're recommending that after July 1st, when we start digging into this work, that we start with mental health and addictions, because it'll help us find our footing with the proposed structure that we have set forward, as well as we have very, very sophisticated and very, very connected mental health and addictions partners out there in the community that really are behind this work, and they'll be able to help us kind of make some movement early on, and it's a good place to start. Next slide, please. So what you're looking at working on in your plan are mental health and addictions, as I mentioned, housing, and access to services. And over the next couple slides, we're going to break that down a little bit and just kind of lift a few things off the page that we want to highlight. Next slide, please. So mental health and addictions, here we're really looking at improving the equity, access, and quality of mental health and addiction services across the continuum for all residents. So we know that in March of 2020, the province, they rolled out their roadmap to wellness, and that's our provincial mental health and addiction strategy. And one of the key pieces of that strategy is something that we want to mirror in our local strategy, and it's really looking at those core services. So it's helping to define what are the core mental health and addiction services each community should have access to and in place. So we want to align with that, as well as some of the other pieces that we can kind of just touch on is increasing client and family engagement, increasing our capacity around harm reduction and trauma-informed approaches to care and services. We know that some organizations are very good at employing this type of approach. It's what they do day in and day out. But we know that there's other services that don't have that same approach, and it's a barrier for many people when they're trying to access services. So we want to make sure that, you know, when people connect to mental health and addiction services, it is as well received as it can be and very as supportive as it can be. And so that's where you get the harm reduction and trauma-informed approach as being, you know, key. And then also looking at building strategies and capacity for people to self-manage their mental well-being. Another thing that came out, resonated with a lot of stakeholders and people that were involved in this consultation was around mental health strategies in the workplace, but helping employers support employees. So we can recognize that it's important to have in the workplace, but some employers just don't know where to start with that, especially the smaller businesses. So we want to support them through a bit of a coordinated strategy around that. And then the last one is looking at a measurement piece. Next slide, please. So around housing, we want to continue and support the ongoing efforts that are already underway around affordable or attainable housing. But another piece of that is also making it possible for people to remain housed. And that's a real struggle these days. So looking at what those housing stabilization supports would be, what are the enablers for that? The other piece, as I mentioned, around kind of the affordable or attainable housing is how do we support municipal councils in optimizing the use of planning tools that are already at their disposal? And then again, making sure that we align any work that we're doing with, local or provincial or federal initiatives around homelessness and homelessness prevention strategies. Next slide, please. So access to services, that's like a very broad concept. And, I shouldn't play favorites, but because these are all important areas of risk to focus on. But I think that if we do a really good job around this, it's a real game changer across the board in some of those other areas of risk as well. And, when we were doing some of the investigative research around this early on, there wasn't a lot of best practice out there around access to service. And so this is something that if we really dig into and do well, I think it's a real model going forward, even for other communities. So when we're talking about access to services, we're talking about focusing on 4 domains of access. And you can see some examples there under each one, but we're talking about availability, accessibility, accommodation, and acceptability of service. And if you look into the plan and you kind of read up on those a little bit more, the idea behind it is we're going to draft and map out a framework using those 4 domains and all those different pieces that should be in place under each one. And then we're going to overlay that on against organizations that already exist in our community and see kind of how we measure up and see where we're maybe doing okay and then where those big gaps are and kind of relate that back to our residents and our residents' needs around some of these other areas. And that's kind of our jumping off point for figuring out what do we prioritize, what are our next moves. So I'm really excited about this piece because I think this could be a real game changer, and you've got some very strong partners that are really chomping at the bit to get into this one. So I think that's great. Next slide, please. So this is a colorful page and it looks busy, but bear with me. We're going to go through it and try and break it down for you. So if you find yourself on the map, you're on the left-hand side. And you'll notice when I talked on, I think it was maybe slide 5 and around there, about who your planning partners were and a little bit of the infrastructure. So you can see that outer circle where it says GMCC, the kind of the medium gray or light gray dot, that's that local governance of your plan. And then you have the bigger circle with the colored rings around it. That's your local planning table. And those colored rings relate to the areas of risk that you've identified that you want to work on in your plan. Then you have a darker circle coming from that, and that's your representation at that kind of county-wide steering committee to really kind of focus on processes, not governance of your plan, but really around kind of the administrative processes. And then as you can see, you have the advisory body in the middle, and that supports all 5 plans, and that makes sense because those advisory people are people like your CEOs from like CMHA and New Path and housing at the county. So they do support the broader county, but it's nice that there's local planning. You'll always maintain governance of your local plan and how the strategies are rolled out or implemented in your community. And the other thing with having this slide here, and it's in the plan, is that you can see what the other communities are working on and where there's overlap or some consistency. So an example of this would be the purple ring. You can see that dark purple ring, access to service. The only other group that's focusing on that is the Couchiching group. So when we get down to working on some strategies around that, we might want to link up just so that we don't kind of, you know, duplicate anything. But how it looks, how it's delivered, or how we roll it out locally, that's going to have local influence. And there's not necessarily a prescribed way we have to do it. So we want to leverage what we can that makes sense, but we want these to be local plans that make sense for the local residents. Next slide, please. This slide is really, if you just look down the left, you got mental health and addictions, housing, public health, poverty, income. Those are like kind of your 8 areas of risk that are across the county. And these are the existing intersectoral planning tables. So I think having this slide here just gives us confidence that there is work underway. And we want to make sure that we leverage the work that's underway and just have a say in what that looks like in our community. And I think that that's one of the beauties and the strengths of this type of planning, is that some of those conversations that happen at a county level or kind of at a regional level, there isn't always local voice. And now with this proposed, you know, phase 2 and the infrastructure, there is a local voice at that table and with some of those conversations that are taking place. So we'll move to the next slide. So when it comes down to how we measure this, we know that these are, you know, complex social issues. The solutions are not linear. There isn't one clear path to solve any one of these. If there was, somebody would have figured it out long before community safety and well-being became a mandate. And we know that no municipality, group, or organization or person can be held responsible for community level well-being exclusively. Everybody, it's a partnership. So we do know that if we work together collaboratively across sectors with coordinated strategies, and I think that's key, that we can kind of move the needle in the right direction around some of these areas of risk that we're talking about. And so the goal of the strategies in this plan is that when they're implemented, they will have a contributory positive effect versus looking for a causal, like we did something and it caused this. It's too nebulous for that. They're too interconnected and there's too many dependencies. But we know that if we plan together, we share information and we measure things together, if we're all on the same page with that, then we will have a positive impact on some of these areas of risk. Next slide, please. So what are the next steps? Well, if you choose to adopt your plan today, then you will meet your July 1st timeline. And then after July 1st, you're going to be working with community partners. So the community will work together to form that local table. And then after that, figure out who from that local table will be the representative for this plan at that steering committee. And that's kind of your July to September plan, I would say, is like those next steps. Next slide. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Carrie. I appreciate that. Obviously, a lot of work and thoughts gone into putting this together. So I want to acknowledge and thank you and your colleagues at Avail for assisting and helping us put that together. And also to Rory, who has been our representative on the staff here, who have been looking out for this project. Thank you very much for that. Members of council, do you have any questions to either the chief or to Carrie? Councillor Patterson, go ahead.
Yeah, just a comment to Carrie and the chief. You know, there's so many services available that the public can get access to, but they're not aware. And my experience has been that cross-agency communication and implementation is so important to ensure that public gets access to those benefits. So, you know, thank you. This sounds like a very much needed and welcomed plan. So thanks for all the effort on this. I'm really impressed that we're doing this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Patterson. I'm just muting my microphone because there's a guy cutting the grass right outside the door here, so right outside the window. So if I disappear, that's why. Doug McKechnie, Councillor McKechnie, I think I saw your card.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Kara, on the page 41 of the presentation that you sent to us that was attached to the agenda, you talked about being a male being a risk factor for housing instability. Can you just expand on that? Why would males be more of a risk factor for housing instability?
Through mayor measures to the councillor. That's a good question. I think that, when we're looking at this is informed by data. And so often you can't really look at one factor just in isolation, but maybe there's a correlation between males, substance use, mental health. Often males, if there's a divided family, they find themselves as a single occupant looking for housing. And I was really surprised when I was digging into some of the data and I was speaking with the Ontario Works people at the county that, we think of families in need of housing, families who are on Ontario Works or ODSP, and it's actually single people, mostly males. So when you start looking at one piece of data and you start following it along, there's a story there. And so that's the challenge with some of the planning in the past, is that everybody's doing an exceptional job, but they're really laser focused on their area, their work that they're doing. And there's sometimes a disconnect, not all the time, I'm not generalizing, but there's an opportunity for greater alignment of planning together and identifying who some of those vulnerable populations are and saying, okay, let's follow that path. Like, what does that look like? And so you'll notice for each of the areas of risk, each of the three, and across the county for all 8 areas of risk, it starts with the very same first step. And it's identifying a framework or a continuum. And it's like, what are all the enablers that need to be in place in order to have a positive change in this area of risk? Because it's not enough to just say, well, what's an inventory of everything we have? We actually have to figure out where the interconnectedness is, and they are all interconnected. So you'll find somebody who is, is a male who's struggling with homelessness. They're also struggling potentially with employment, potentially with mental health, not for sure, not a guarantee, but there may be an education piece as well, maybe an income piece as well. So that's why we are looking forward to moving forward with the strategies, because it's going to connect some of these dots.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate that, Carrie, and I appreciate that you recognize that as a risk factor, that being a male, because I think quite often males are forgotten, in society today. So single males with mental addiction and such, and maybe substance abuse. For a follow-up, if I may, Your Worship, for Rory, one quick one. Rory, do you see mental health as being the biggest risk in Clearview? It seems like we've got the 3: mental health and addiction, we've got housing, we've got access to services. What do you see as the biggest risk? Mental health? To me, it would be housing, but what do you see it as?
Well, through Your Worship.
And also, sorry, Rory, is there anything that we can do as a council other than adopt this?
Well, through Your Worship to Councillor McKechnie, obviously, a look at this plan specifically, it's designed at the region or the area, right? This sub area that we've created. So there is a little bit of a balance there. And I would think probably you are right with respect to the fact that it might not be the most predominant issue that we're faced with on a day-to-day basis in the township. However, with that being said, it certainly does need to be recognized. So, if we do look at housing in the current state, and keeping in mind when this plan was created, we were under a little bit of a different time as well. So, certainly there has been a shift, and I think it shows the significance and the depth of the plan to recognize, so many different facets of this. However, with respect to where we go from here and how we move forward into your follow-up question, I think as a council, I think that's probably a bigger question than what I could answer for you right now. And I think, the clear direction would be to, have the members sit on the steering committee, determine the next steps, and I think probably some follow-up conversation with council and with staff, just to identify, the key components of this plan a little bit farther. So in short, I do think there's probably a little bit more discussion with our group, with council, that probably needs to take place before that question could be answered.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor McKechnie. Excellent questions and good points. Thank you, Chief, for those answers. Any other members of council with any questions to Carrie or Rory? All right. I'm not seeing any. I would have a question if I may jump in at this time then. Carrie, particularly, and to Rory, the issue of access to services. I'm just wondering, Carrie, from your experience working on these plans and working on these issues, and certainly getting to know the makeup of our community. We're certainly a rural, small community with, some geographic distances. We do have a transit system, but we don't have an extensive transit system across the whole town. I'm just wondering about the whole concept of access to services and how that will play out for a successful plan in the future. Is it something that we should be looking at at the county level and ask for more assistance in that, or to create mobile facilities or pop-up facilities? Is that something, Carrie, that you've had experience with?
Thank you, Mayor. It's an excellent question. And I think your community is really well positioned to ask that compared to some of the other communities that have the infrastructure in place and maybe some more robust, as you say, transit options in place. I think what we're going to see here when we kind of dig into access to services and we look at along those 4 domains that I identified, and you break down, even farther, and I think there's more detail in the plan. And then when we overlay that on the area, so your area, this planning group, and you say, okay, what do we have in place? What do we just don't have? And then we prioritize that. That's where the conversation can then happen and say, okay, how do we bring greater access to, how do we encourage greater access to service for our residents around these however many areas that you've identified? Because you can't, solve all of this in 4 years, but you can identify where your priorities are and then start figuring out with your planning partners, whether that be the county or the individual organizations providing the services related to those areas that you've identified. What can we do? Is it pop-up? Is it mobile? And then you think, what is the role of the municipality? Do we have infrastructure? Do we have, in some communities, library space to host satellite clinics or whatever? That's where you can start figuring out what you can do about it. And, to just kind of, off the top of your head now, you would just be kind of, throwing things against the wall. So I think that you'd want to go through this process and this framework and have some evidence to identify what you need. And I think this is a great opportunity for communities of this size to say, okay, what do we really need kind of in-house brought in? And what does it still make sense that we can facilitate access to at another location? And what does that look like?
I appreciate the fact that you recognize that, and thank you. It's certainly something that we will be reaching for and trying for. I think I should, just point out that we have had some success with our youth center in a sort of smaller version of this plan, our youth programming that Councillor Walker is a member of that. We did engage some services through United Way as well as through the Canadian Mental Health Association to assist our staff as well as the people that are participating in the youth center with some programming and some content help. So we've got a little bit of success there, but it's, in a small way, that's part of helping our youth in our community. I think the best part about this plan, Council, is it's for the entire community and addresses issues that, are for young and old, and, there's no class structure involved in any of this. It's all about just being healthy and having a good community and a wellness plan. So if there's nothing further, I'll look to Council. Nothing further. Tom, did you have something else? Tom? No, you're okay. All right, nothing further. Then I want to again thank Carrie and your team at Avail, and also want to acknowledge and thank Chief Rory Payment for leading this on behalf of our staff. And Mr. CAO, thank you also for reviewing this with them. And I'm really glad that we had this on our agenda today. Members of Council, there's a recommendation that our Deputy Clerk moved up on our agenda because we wanted to bring this forward. So I'll read the recommendation, and then we look for a mover and seconder. Recommendation be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive FD 002-2021. It's the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan report for information. And item number 2, adopt the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, CSWBP. A mover and seconder on this motion, Councillor McKechnie, Councillor Patterson. And is there any discussion on the adoption of this plan? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Again, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Carrie. Always a pleasure to have consultants bring us really good information about the future of our community. Thank you for being here today. All right, Council, 6:30 is a public meeting. So looking at the clock, we got 25 minutes till that. So we'll move ahead on our agenda to item number 7. It's the approval of the minutes of the council meeting. So I'll move to that. Recommendation, be it resolved, the Council of the Township hereby approve the minutes May 10, 2021 council meeting as presented. Mover and seconder on the minutes. Roderick and Lamers, John and John, and I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the minutes are adopted. And is there any business arising from the minutes? Item number 8. Nothing coming out of those minutes. Very good. Okay, members of council, we're at item number 9, communications from the mayor. Item 1 is a closed session report. We did have a closed session. We have nothing to report at this time from the closed session. So thank you, members of council, for participating in that. And more information will be coming from that discussion later. Item number 9.2, NVCA media release, and 9.3, NVCA monthly newsletter. Does anybody have anything, questions on those 2 items from the communications from the mayor? Seeing none. Thank you, council. Recommendation, be it resolved, the council of the township hereby receive the communications from the mayor for information. Mover and seconder, please. Walker and McKechnie. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Moving on to page 3. County reports for information. Item number 10 is consultations on guidance for personal production of cannabis for medical purposes. 10.2 is Simcoe County Museum interactive exhibit for the Simcoe County communities. Item 3 is the Ask an Expert series, COVID-19 impacts on women in business. And item 4 is the ever popular automated cart collection program. Is there any members of council with any questions on some of those reports that have been presented on the agenda? Go ahead, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the cannabis one about, I just wanted to remind council or encourage all of council to ensure that they have a look at that report from the county and the emotions that are contained within it. And I watched the county meeting that Your Worship you were at and the deputy mayor when you discussed this, and it was a good discussion. I was really impressed with how knowledgeable the county councillors were. Cannabis production facilities, they're becoming a real problem province-wide and certainly within Simcoe County. And the vast majority of the municipalities at that county meeting there, they relayed some horror stories in their dealings with operators. And several municipalities have interim control bylaws, the same as we do, in place. And some already have zoning restrictions. As a matter of fact, this evening, Springwater Township, just to the east of us, are holding a public meeting on cannabis production facilities this evening. They have an interim control bylaw and they've moved on to the public meeting stage. So I'll be watching that tomorrow. I hope it's archived on YouTube. And council, as you know, Mara, our director of planning, will be bringing a report to council hopefully in the near future. And so I would ask you, as you know, this is an issue dear to my heart. I would ask you to keep up to speed on happenings around us and the communities around us, and think about how best we can locate cannabis production facilities in our township. So I just wanted to highlight that report. Hopefully you get a chance to have a good look at it. And it was a good meeting that the county had, and I'm glad that county is aware. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKechnie. I also want to thank you for tuning into our county council meetings on a regular basis. We appreciate that. Is anybody else with any questions on any of these items from the county reports? All right. Seeing none, I do want to mention the automated cart collection. I think I mentioned it before. In the lobby of the admin center, we do have some examples of the automated carts. There are 3 of them here, obviously. And so when we get the doors open in this building, you're going to get a chance to see them in person. And when I walked by them today, Mr. CAO, it struck me that when we get the farmers market up and operational, perhaps we can enlist some of the services of our tourism and recreation staff to take these out and show them off at the farmers markets when they get set up. It might be a good opportunity for the citizens to get a feel for how big these little cabinets are, and just to get an opportunity. So we'll have a discussion about that later on with the recreation team. So, members of council, nothing further on county reports. All right, I'm going to call the motion. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township hereby receive the county reports for information. I'll move it. Seconder, please. Broderick, McKechnie, all those in favor? And thank you. That carries. All right, council, this is now your turn. This is Warden Reports. So we'll go around the room. I'm going to start with Councillor Broderick, then it'll be Leishman, and then Deneen. Broderick, Leishman, Deneen. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, May 31st, 2020. Oh, okay. On May 11th, attended the Clearview Advisory Board meeting. May 18th, attended the Clearview Library Board meeting. May 19th, attended the Clearview Chamber of Commerce meeting. And elections on May 27th, attended the council workshop with the rest of council regarding the traffic assessment study. On May 28th, attended the Water 101 seminar. And that is it for me, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much for that. I didn't catch the results of the Chamber of Commerce election. Do you have any report on that, or is it, I didn't even get a chance to catch up on that. Do you know anything about it, John?
There's not a whole lot of change there. We do have a couple of new members.
Okay.
And we do have a couple of seats still vacant at this time.
All right. Well, I'm going to check in with the Chamber folks. They're members of our Economic Development Action Committee, so I'll be meeting with them tomorrow. So I just wanted to check with you on that. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Councillor Leishman's next, then Janine, then Walker. So go ahead, Connie.
Oh, thank you. On the 11th, I attended the Elector Zoom sort of workshop. It was put on by Gray Bruce. Phyllis and I attended that. It was interesting, but I know most of it. So what I'm thinking that if anybody wants to run, any women, of course, wants to run in this township, just get a hold of one of us and we'll give you all the information that you need to get in touch and listen to some of these workshops, because I think they're quite valuable. The 14th, I attended the Civic Prayer Breakfast. I always did go in person. I missed it last year. I think I was in surgery. I can't remember. But it was a lovely message, and it's always beneficial. I always feel quite moved by it and quite grateful. On the 18th, went to the library meeting. On the 19th, I was with John at the chamber meeting. The Mother's Day draw was sold out completely, which was great. We have new banners on the main street of Stayner. Go take a look. And the planters are either there or they're coming. So Chamber would like to thank staff and Rural Roots for doing that. The planters, they're going to look beautiful. And we have a bit more of a connection with Creemore now, so we're kind of in sync. On the 22nd, I went to the Creemore Farmers Market, myself, Councillor Patterson, and Mayor Measures. And there was quite a good crowd for 8:30 in the morning, although Amanda wasn't there, and she's the one that invited us. So next time, early morning rise. On the 27th, the traffic study, which was quite interesting and really informative. On the 28th, I attended a build seminar. It was called IZ Not Easy, and it was about inclusionary zoning. I know it had to do with more Toronto, but I really learned a lot. Some of the things could actually work for us, but anyway, though, that's for another day. And also on the 28th, I attended the Water 101, and that was a refresher for me. So I don't ever want to look after a water plant, but I know how to do it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. I'll have to pass that along to Mike Ron. He'll enlist your assistance, won't he? Councillor Deneen is next, then Councillor Walker, then McKechnie. Go ahead, Phyllis.
Thanks. Try to keep it brief, Your Worship. Like basically what John and Connie just reiterating it, we had the elector. The inclusionary zoning part is basically Toronto. It's near all the corridors for transportation corridors in Toronto. Anything with streetcars and subways, that sort of thing. And the council workshop on the 27th and the Water 101 did those two. I just wanted to include a thank you to the township staff for the compost and mulch deliveries. They were really well received here, and it went really well. Connie and I have a meeting tomorrow for our regional housing subcommittee, and that's at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Just a reminder, Connie. And for myself as well, I will have grandchildren. And the next Ottawa Hall meeting is June 10th at 7:30 for anyone who would like to follow it on YouTube. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Phyllis. It's great to see you. Councillor Walker's next, then McKechnie, and then Patterson. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple things. May 27th, of course, attended the traffic study workshop along with the rest of the council. Tomorrow, June 1st to 4:30, we have our youth committee virtual meeting. Continue to support the local curbside shopping in the restaurants. Tomorrow, I also get to take 2 teenage grandchildren to Holly to have their COVID shots. That's tomorrow at 11:30. The other thing is I want to talk to is just to say, as on May the 26th, the patients of Dr. Leslie Hutchings received a letter. And Dr. Hutchings will be moving away on August the 1st. And so I'd just like to thank her for her 20 years of medical service to the residents of Clearview and the surrounding areas. I'm sure there were patients from various other municipalities that Dr. Hutchings looked after. I also want to, she has also told us that Dr. Jennifer Gensarelli will be taking over her practice as of August the 1st. So welcome to Dr. Jessica Gensarelli. And again, a thank you to Dr. Hutchings for her service to the municipality.
Thank you, Councillor. Good luck to those young people getting their COVID vaccine. Best thing they can do. Councillor McKechnie is next, Councillor Patterson, and then Lamers. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I too would like to thank Dr. Hutchings for her 20 years of service as well. I attended a number of meetings. The two most important, I suppose, the council workshop on the 27th for the traffic analysis study. And, you know, I think maybe I marched to a little bit of a different drummer on that one. So I let my feelings be known. And Dan, I'm still going to be sending you an email, and because you wanted suggestions sent to you in an email. So that's on my to-do list for this week. And but it was a very good session. I really, I learned a little bit, and it was a great session. I think we got a lot accomplished. Also too, I attended that Water 101 seminar. And the thing that I took from that, I'm glad they had some technical issues at first, and I'm glad they got them sorted out, because the technical issues were to do with Justice O'Connor's, little recorded video. And at one point I thought, oh, come on, just get on with it. Just go to the next item. Do we really need to see this? But they persisted and they got it going. And it was a very good video. And of course, Justice O'Connor was the justice that oversaw the Walkerton Tainted Water inquiry. And I found him to be very no nonsense and straightforward. And it was a very refreshing synopsis that he gave us. He didn't pull any punches. You know, he said it was basically the situation there was caused by complacency, incompetence, and an old boys club. And I was thinking about Clearview Township. You know, we're a small municipality, much like Walkerton is, and so we have to ensure that we don't fall into the same trap, and I don't think we are, but we can't let ourselves resist improvement or change, because that's the way they've always done it. So It was a great seminar, and I'm really glad that I tuned into that. And I think they mentioned something about a standard of care course coming up, a 3-hour online course, and I'll be looking forward to that. So it was a busy couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Justice O'Connor is a part-time resident of Clearview sometimes too. So he's sometimes you'll see him at the Creemore Farmers Market. Very good. Councillor Patterson and then Lamers. Hi, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I try to share just some of the discussions I've been having, mostly phone calls, a couple Zooms on the past 2 weeks. Earlier this month, you'll remember I announced that I intended to bring a notice of motion forward regarding the construction of Side Road 2627 now before the Niagara Escarpment Hearing Office. So we're starting to receive some letters from the public, which is a good thing. As there have been a number of moving parts as I doing my preparation, I've reconsidered how to come back to council, and I've decided to consult a little bit further with my council members at their convenience and the staff and any interest publics before bringing back a report asking council for a without prejudice exploration of a good faith alternatives to the current road settlement agreement that are mutually beneficial, don't disadvantage and are agreeable to the parties. This would include, of course, but not limited to potential withdrawals of our proposed site-specific amendment to the NEP, and also the possibility of maintaining County Road 91 as an internal regional roadway. So over the next month, I'll be doing that and coming back to council. I'm of the opinion, and which is what driving force for me, that most of the original objectives, why this whole thing started, the benefits have been achieved, and but we do have the road agreement before us as the current document. Just on a lighter note, it was good to hear all the residents in the village, in Creemore, of course, enjoying the holiday weekend. I did receive some complaints regarding noise and fireworks, which you know is to be expected on special holidays, especially. However, I would say, especially as we are still close to home during this pandemic, and as we approach the summer weather, I would ask that the public consider their neighbors when playing amplified music and fireworks after midnight, which did happen, and that was the cause of several complaints. Just be considerate. It's only a decent thing to do. I want to reiterate my comments, and I think some of the public I've talked to see the, as I explained it to them. I don't know how many people public saw it, but I thought the traffic assessment study that was presented by Dan's people and Henry Kenton and their experts from Burnside, I thought it was a very good first step. And I thought it was laid out very good, and I look forward to and I encourage the public to tune in to hear what happens on June 14th, where council presents some of their own comments based on that report. And one last thing, Creemore Echo, they're in the middle of a subscription drive. It's an important link to the community. We use it. People depend on it to give us a good slice of community news. And so if you haven't, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe. And if you see to making a contribution open or above that, support that important link, I'd encourage you to do so. That's my report.
Great, thank you, Councillor Patterson. I'm going to go right to Councillor Lamers. John?
Thank you, Worship. At Brentwood Hall Board meeting on the 19th and a special meeting on the 26th to design a survey to put out to the public for their input on the hall renovations. And I just got an email before the meeting that we're getting quite a few replies already. So we have interest in the community. And then evening on the 20th, and then on the 27th, the traffic assessment workshop. And we've had a lot of, they were going around dropping off papers in the mail to residents from Rogers fiber optic cable. And everybody was wondering what all the blue marks and yellow marks and orange marks were doing in town. So they're going gung-ho on getting all the markings on the streets now to go ahead and get this fiber in. Thank you.
That's great news. I'm sure the residents down there will find that to be very, very helpful. They're all stuck at home. They need internet, don't they?
Oh, yes.
For that. All right, John. Listen, Councillor Broderick, you flashed your card. Do you want to jump in again?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just went back through my notes in order to answer your question on the
oh, sure.
Clearview Chamber elections. Rebecca Vaughn is our new vice president. Mira McCann is our new second-year director. And we're currently looking for a third-year director and a secretary.
All right, well, thank you to you and Councillor Leishman for attending those meetings on our behalf. So that's great. Thank you very much. Council, I've got a couple of items that I'm just going to add. Also, just to remind anybody who's tuning in, the deputy mayor is not with us tonight. He's not here to give his report, but he should be coming back at our next meeting. I also want to acknowledge the civic prayer breakfast. I always attend that, and it was very enriching to attend that and hear about some comments about leadership and how leadership is something about working with people, not just being a leader, not to believe everything you say as the leader, but also to work with people and to hear them and to make it work together as a cooperative effort, which is very much what a community does. I mean, we all try. We're elected leaders here, I guess, in this community, but we're all trying to hear and work with our citizens, and that's exactly our job. So it was a very good message, and I always enjoy sitting in on and participating in the civic prayer breakfast every year. And thank you to the organizers that put that together on our behalf. It was mentioned earlier about the farmers market. I was great pleasure to be able to deliver a check of a grant support to the Creemore Farmers Market. I also was able to attend the Creemore Minor Baseball and was able to present a check on behalf of Clearview Township for a grant there as well. And Councillor Deneen, you'll be happy to know I also delivered that $10,000 contribution towards the food bank, the Clearview Stainer Food Bank, on behalf of council, and very happy to and honored to be able to do that and represent that for all of us here in Clearview Township. So it was nice to be able to do that. One other thing I do want to mention, we don't do this very often, but I do want to mention the fact that Eldon Bell passed away, and he was a past reeve of Stainer, but he also was a past warden of Simcoe County. And I just want to acknowledge him and his family. Mr. Bell contributed a lot to this community. And, Mr. CAO, remember I took you on a quick tour around and showed you Reinhardt vinegar? Well, Eldon Bell was one of the guys that created and worked with Reinhardt's to create what they are today. So he's a big part of this community for sure. So I just wanted you to know that. So anyway, council, that is the end of our ward reports at this time. It is 6:30 exactly. So we're going to go to our public meeting, and then we'll go back to our regular portion of our agenda. So we're moving back to our public meeting portion. Mayor Burton is with us. And normally, as you know, our public meetings are conducted by our deputy mayor. He is not here. So I have a script that was handed to me. So I'm going to read it. All right. We will now initiate the public meeting portion of tonight's agenda. We want to thank everyone who provided written comments ahead of tonight's public meeting. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Township of Clearview on an application being discussed this evening, please contact the planning in charge of the file, the planner in charge of the file. This information will be provided in the presentation as identified in the notice of the public meeting. Please be advised your written comments or request to be notified will form part of the public record. Your communication, any personnel information therein will be made available to the public unless you expressly request its removal. There are two proposals tonight related to one another. There's an amendment to the vending bylaw regulated underneath the Municipal Act, and there's other one being an amendment to the zoning bylaw, which is regulated underneath the Planning Act. So in regard, we're having two issues in one public meeting. In regard to the amendment for the zoning bylaw, if a person of the public body does not make written submissions to the township with respect to the proposed application before a decision is made or a bylaw is passed, they are not entitled to appeal the decision to the local appeal tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal unless In the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. There is no appeal process for an amendment to the vending bylaw. So the following public meeting will involve a brief presentation by our planning staff and a period of public comments or questions from, and an opportunity for questions from council. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mara Burton. She is our director for this. And so Mara, would you like to do a presentation on these two items?
Yes, thank you. Just make sure everybody can you all see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So as firstly, I'll introduce myself as Mara Burton. I'm the Director of Planning and Development, and I'm the one actually that's working on this particular file for the township. So what we're looking at doing is making an amendment to the vending bylaw, which is bylaw 1442, and also an amendment to the zoning bylaw. And that file is 2021-014 ZB. So the proposal regarding the vending bylaw is to clear up duplication and any inconsistency in the bylaw and to make the bylaw more user-friendly. The bylaw currently permits 2 classes of licenses. So this is not proposed to be change, but there was a little bit of confusion there. So I'll explain the 2 classes of licenses. Class A operates from a motor vehicle, which is capable of traveling or being hauled behind a motor vehicle and has current motor vehicle license plates. That means that the vehicle can be moved at any time with ease. Class B is a non-motorized, muscular-powered or stationary equipment or booth and shall include, but is not limited to, bicycle carts, portable barbecues, grills, a table or coolers. And these implements are also highly portable. So just to give you a little cartoon version of what a Class A is, so your typical French fry truck or your hot dog cart kind of idea, and your Class B would be a little stand. Sometimes we see the maple syrup stand or the flowers being sold, or a little fruit and vegetable stand down below under Class B. So that's the 2 types that we allow. So the proposal in the vending bylaw is to remove the words "from a merchandise vehicle" from the definition of merchandise vendor, because actually the way our bylaw is written right now, it doesn't recognize any of the Class B uses. It says that if you're going to be a merchandise vendor, that it's from a merchandise vehicle, which isn't the case. So we're just clarifying that. And then we're adding a definition for temporary, as this word is used throughout the bylaw, but it actually doesn't have a definition. We're also looking to add the following to the administration section of the bylaw, and that is to ensure that a permanent business in a storefront location doesn't need a vending license, that a drawing of the structures proposed is also required to obtain a license so that we know exactly what we're licensing. That a license extension has to be applied for annually. That's already in the bylaw, but it's just not specified in the administration section. That the owner of the property must give written permission. A list of which departments and groups are to be circulated the license for approval, and this will provide more clarity for the applicants and also for staff. And a list of things to be considered in reviewing a license, including the health and safety and community planning. And this is also added to provide clarity to the applicant and to the staff. We're looking at relocating what regulations applied to both licenses to the general regulations, or rather from the general regulations to the administration section. This will reduce duplication. So in going through the bylaw, there was a lot of duplication. We actually do have a track changes version of this on the website, along with attached to the report on council agenda for anyone who wants more detail. We've added provisions regarding the health unit and the TSSA approval and similar sort of requirements, again, to help the applicant make their application, make it properly from the beginning to help save them time and trouble. And we relocated the powers of the bylaw officer from the general regulations section, where somebody wouldn't normally look for it, to the appropriate section, which is the inspection section and the power of, for power of entry. We cleaned up sections 7 and 8, and we removed most of Schedule A. Most of Schedule A was already a duplication of everything that's in the main body of the bylaw. So we thought it would make it a lot easier, less for people to read than to have to read it through twice. So we've just removed that. And we removed most of Schedule B also as duplication, other than the map of the area around the Creemore BIA, because that's part of the bylaw. So that has not changed. We updated the map schedule, however, just so that there was no zoning shown on it, because it could be misleading if people were looking at that, assuming certain zones when they may change over time. So this is the new schedule for the BIA area. So you can see it doesn't have any official plan designations, and there's no change to that current area. The proposal actually changed the number of pages in the vending bylaw from 21 to 16. So we think that's a good thing because it makes it 25% reduction in the words people have to read and understand, but basically the bylaw itself didn't change. Now moving to the zoning bylaw. The proposed change to the zoning bylaw would clarify the existing provisions that a shipping container and a moving container are not to be used for vending. So you can see when we talked about the class 1 and the class A and the class B vending, that these were things that were highly portable. You can hook it up behind your vehicle, you can drive it, or you can, like it's a table and chairs and that kind of thing that's set out like a simple little booth. So it was pointed out to us by somebody that they felt that it was a little bit misleading, that the zoning bylaw might, sort of sounded like it allowed you to do vending out of a shipping container when in fact you can't. And that isn't how it was designed when it was written. So we're just fixing that. So the following prohibited use section of our zoning bylaw reads: the use of any portable structure, vehicle, cargo container, street or rail car, or accessory building or structure for human habitation. So these are prohibited uses, except where an accessory dwelling unit is permitted to be located in a detached building. So that last section relates only to the human habitation of an accessory building or structure, not a vehicle, not to have human habitation of a vehicle or that sort of thing. So it's being proposed to be replaced with the use of any structure, vehicle, shipping container, moving container, or street or rail car for storage or human habitation. So that would be prohibited. And the use of any accessory building for human habitation, except where an accessory dwelling unit is permitted to be located in a detached dwelling. So it just helps clarify it a little bit. And then the next item is F that we're looking to clarify. And it reads that the use of any portable structure, vehicle, cargo container, or street or rail car for storage or sales, again, this is prohibited, except where a license has been issued for vending only of merchandise for food for a particular operation and at a particular location in accordance with the licensing bylaw. So we've proposed to replace that with the use of any shipping container, moving container, or street or rail car as prohibited. And H, the use of any portable structure or vehicle except where a license has been issued for vending of merchandise, because again, we didn't want to have a conflict with the zoning bylaw saying for food. So it's merchandise and food in accordance with bylaw 14-42 or its successors. So we've added that just in case the vending bylaw ever changes. We wanted to make sure that it's current with whatever current vending bylaw we may have at the time in place for the township. So that's essentially the change. And what we've done is we've given notice, and that was done through our website, through the newspapers, and that was done, and also of course to our government agencies that would have an interest, and that was done on May 8th. So the meeting is properly constituted, and the details and supporting materials have been made available to the public. I have to tell you that we haven't actually had anybody contact us about this particular amendment. It is pretty minor, really isn't any change. So at this point, I have nothing to report to council on any comments from the public. And so I can't really speak to that right now. Now, of course, if anybody has any concerns, they still have an opportunity to send them in to me. I'm happy to hear them, and we'll be looking to report back to council relatively quickly. So again, I am the planner on the file, and you can reach me at my email at mburton@clearview.ca or by phone. I'm extension 264. And just for the review process, we are at the public meeting stage right now. Again, as Mayor Measures mentioned, the amendment to the vending bylaw isn't appealable, So the decision of council is final. However, the amendment to the zoning bylaw is appealable. So if anybody had a concern, if council passes it and we weren't able to resolve their concern, then they could certainly appeal to the local appeal tribunal. So we will be considering any comments that we receive. We will make a recommendation back to council. Council can approve or deny the application, and then we will have the appeal period for the zoning only. And if there's any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Mira. Again, just to review, during a public meeting, we normally take questions from the public. Mira, just confirm with the public that if they do have any questions or concerns, they can still reach out and contact you for any clarifications. Is that correct, Mira? I mean, you said it in your last slide. Yes,
that is correct. I certainly, they can reach out to me at mburton@clearview.ca or at the township office, and I'm extension 264.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so at this point, we go to members of the committee. Are there any members of the committee that wish to have a comment or question of staff? I see Councillor Patterson and then Councillor Walker. Please go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, for making that comment about the public. I was curious to see if there was any public comment, especially from our BIA. I was there when that thing was written.
Yeah.
It was horrendous. So thank you very much for the craftsmanship on that. Much appreciated. And I too didn't see any change in the intent of the whole thing. It was better said. And so I'm hoping that it'll sail through, because I think it's at a stage now, or a form that is much easier to understand and to read. So thanks for that work, that housekeeping.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I acknowledge that because I was also there and I remember it was something. So thank you for that. Councillor Walker is next. Is anybody else? Councillor Walker, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Tomorrow, the owner written permission, is that a one-time written permission, or is that a yearly written permission as the license is a yearly application?
Through mayor measures to Councillor Walker, that would be every year they would need the owner. So that way it's actually, I think, better, because if the owner doesn't want to make a commitment beyond 1 year, then they have the right to change their mind.
Yeah, good, thank you. And the other thing is, I'm going to ask the pizza kiosk, where does it fall? I mean, it's not really a portable structure, as it's a building wired, so it doesn't really fall under A or B. And I'm just wondering where that class, where it goes, what it falls under.
Well, actually, that's kind of how we got here.
Yeah, okay.
So that's why we're clarifying it, because it really doesn't fit into that hook it up behind the car and drive it away class. So it kind of snuck in.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's just what I kind of thought, but thank you.
Any other members of council with any? Hello, Councillor Leishman. Go ahead, Connie.
Thank you. Mayor, last time we talked about this, I mentioned that there was a company in Innisfil that make houses out of shipping containers. Is that something we don't want to see in Clearview? I'm getting from this this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Leishman, through the mayor. We haven't made any changes that way. So shipping containers have still been prohibited. Now, if somebody turns a shipping container into a building through the Ontario Building Code, then that's different. And we do have architectural control. So depending on the circumstances, that might be something that they could do still. So that there's no change to that. And of course, I know we still have lots of challenges in affordable housing that we're going to be trying to work through over the next while. So I'll be seeing you tomorrow on that.
Yes, that's right. So thank you.
All right, that's right. And we are dealing about the vending permits here tonight. So this is about the shipping containers and vending. So although the affordable housing comment is important, it's not as part of this discussion. But thank you for bringing it up though, Connie, because we need to hear more about that. Is there any other members of council? All right, seeing none, thank you, Mara. I'm going to close the public meeting at this time. It's closing the public meeting in respect to the amendment to the vending bylaw and the zoning bylaw with tonight's agenda. All input received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendation and by council in their decision with respect to this application. A report regarding the proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. This concludes the public meeting portion of our agenda. All right, council, I put the script away and now we move on. Mara, don't go away, because the first item on our agenda, we turn back to department reports, is community services. Mara, CS 029-2021. This is the zoning bylaw amendment for vending and shipping containers and the amendment for the licensing bylaw, number 14-42 vending bylaw. I have a recommendation in front of me and a look for a mover and seconder. So I will put it on the, I'll read it. Recommendation be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive report CS 029-2021 from the Director of Community Services regarding the amendment to bylaw 14-42, the vending bylaw, and zoning bylaw amendment related to the vending and shipping containers, which is amendment will be 2021-014ZB. A mover and seconder to put it on the floor. Councillor Lamers, Councillor Broderick. Is there any, thank you, councillors. Is there any questions? Councillor McKechnie is there. Anybody else with any questions? Councillor McKechnie, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, Mayor, I just have two questions, and I think one of them's a typo, I think. I'm not sure. I read this one paragraph or sentence quite a few times, and I couldn't figure it out. Anyway, it's on page 3, under item number 1 there. This is the British side coming out of me. Are you talking about, is that supposed to be a booth, or are you talking about like a car boot, car trunk?
Thank you, Councillor McKechnie. It is a booth. That is a typo, yes.
Okay, all right. That's it. I read it about 10 times and I couldn't figure it out. And then I just thought, oh, maybe it's a booth she's talking about. Okay, thank you. And page 10, item number 6. Let's have a look here. Hang on. Item number 6. So just for my own clarification, the Creemore Business Improvement Board or anything, they have no say in approval or anything. This is just the location there that you're talking about. It's got to be in that location of or that area that you've outlined. That's the only, like a thing for approval. So it's not like the Creemore BIA get involved in this, do they?
No, you're absolutely right. Through the mayor to Councillor McKechnie, it's just that that is the area of the Creemore business area, and I've got to put myself back into this because it's been a while since I've had my head in this bylaw. They are circulated for comment. Right. So if it's going to be in the Creemore, in the area around the BIA or in the BIA area, they are circulated for comment. That is how the bylaw reads today. So that's not a proposed change. So
they can comment, but they cannot out and out deny it. That's up to you or whatever.
For comments, that's correct. That's how it's written in the bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor, for those clarifications. Is there any other members of council with any questions or comments for this? Seeing none, I want to thank Mara for her work on this. There's two projects in one, and also bring some clarity to it for people that are interested in doing vending. So thank you for all your work on that. Members of council, we've had a discussion. We've got a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. Committee of Adjustment is our next item, CS 030-2021. Recommendation be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive CS 030-2021, Committee of Adjustment, May 2021 report for information. Mover and seconder on the report. Broderick, Walker, thank you. Any questions? You've heard the motion, I'll call it. All those in favor? That carries. Committee of Adjustment, thank you. Community Improvement Plan, proposed date, which is CS 031-2021. Recommendation be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive report CS 031-2021 for information and approve community improvement grants. As per the Director of Community Services report CS 031-2021 for item A, it's 168 Mill Street, the Creemore Apothecary. Hope I'm saying it right. I've thought about that. I haven't really mastered that word yet. Mover and seconder on this motion, please. Councillor Broderick. Councillor Leishman. Thank you very much. Would you like to speak to this report, Mara, as it's a grant?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So I'm very excited that we're starting to see more community improvement grants coming forward. Last year with COVID, I think we had just one. And I think we had just one. And this year, this is our first, but I have some interest from some others coming forward, I think that you will see over the next little while. Also just want to say that the signage that's being put forward is, it's very attractive and it's really good example of meeting our guidelines. I actually included it in your package this time so that you could see it. Yes, recommending approval of this community improvement plan grant.
Excellent. Any members of council with any questions to Mara or the CAO? Go ahead, Mr. McKechnie.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Mara again. So Mara, thank you very much. It looks great. Under your comments and analysis, so it says we've been successful in obtaining an additional 50,000 in funding from the county. So how much do we have in that community grant reserve now? We must be pretty flush in there, are we?
Mara?
Well, through the mayor to Councillor McKechnie, that fund also has funds. It's actually kind of got a group of funds in it. So we have been using and dipping into the county's funding for our last, this funding is actually rolled over. So we're still good there. And we also have been using it for the decorations and the planters and all these other things. So it hasn't been completely isolated, although council has set aside 50,000 each year for this. So we've been doing our very best to make sure that we're always keeping these two accounts separate, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head right now how much we have left, but we do not have a shortage of funds for funding the community improvement plan program.
Okay, no, thank you. That's good. I like to see that 50,000 there from the county. That's yeah, pleasant surprise. Thank you.
Yeah, for the interest of members of council, of course, you can always reach out to the CAO to ask for an update from the Treasury about any of our accounts like this. And it's interesting, this one, as Mara pointed out at the beginning of 2020, we didn't have a whole lot of grant opportunities being asked for. So there was a little bit of money that got moved back into the account as a reserve from 2020. So it gets supported every year in our budget. And so it's a healthy program, and I'm hopeful that we can spread it across our community to other businesses. Members of council, any other questions to Mara or the CAO? All right, Mr. CAO, if I may, I'd like to ask that perhaps we get an update from Mara at our Economic Development Action Committee in regards to how the community improvement plan is working. And that way, some of those volunteers that are serving our community in the business sector will have an opportunity to hear from Mara and how that program's been working. So if we can schedule that, that'd be great. Find a time, okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Members of council, we got a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Congratulations and thank you for that work, Mara. Hopefully that works out really well. Okay, members of council, we have a street issue. I'm not sure if Mara is handling that or anybody else in the planning department, but oh, Nick's there. Hi, Nick. Haven't seen you today. Nice to see you. Okay, this is an interesting one. So there's a lot of text in here. I'll read it. This is in regards to CS033 2021. We're going to stop up and close municipally owned lands, which is part of the Stabilization Drive original plan. Okay. Recommendation be it resolved. The Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive CS033 2021 for information. And item 2, approve bylaw 2157, which authorizes the mayor and clerk to stop up and close municipally owned lands described as Stabilization Drive. It's Plan 51M541, except Part 21 on Plan 51R36521, and part of Lots 5 and 6, Plan 51M541, being Part 1 and 20 on Plan 51R36521. This is formerly in the town of Stayner. It's now in the township of Clearview, and I'll look for a mover and seconder on this motion. Councillor Walker, Councillor Broderick. Nick, what do you got to say about this little project?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, unfortunately, it was rather technical in terms of the recommendation itself. But basically, the overall intent is that the municipality currently owns an unassumed road allowance, or unconstructed as well, known as Sidell Drive. So this was dedicated to the municipality in the late 90s as a part of the original Sidell Estates plan of subdivision. However, while the part of the subdivision developed on Sunnydale Street because they had maintained frontage onto a constructed roadway, as Sidell Drive was never constructed, the lands internal to the Sidell Estates never developed. Since that time, in 2016, a new applicant's come forward to move forward with a new plan of subdivision. They have received draft plan approval for a plan of subdivision of full municipal services, which moves forward with in addition to the redesign of the lot fabrics, also a new road network through there. So a new network different from what's currently proposed at Sidell Estates, which is more of a dead end road with cul-de-sac. So the first step in the process would be to close up and stop up and close these lands, with the intent being that they be conveyed at a later time to the applicants, and then eventually, once the new road network is created through the formal plan of subdivision process, that new road network would be conveyed back to the municipality.
All right, thank you very much for that, Nick. Before I open it for other questions, I would like to just question Nick. Some members of council have been here for a while. We were here when we built the new fire hall, which is immediately adjacent to the property. Part of that negotiation when we were endeavoring to build that building was to make sure that there was a alternate exit from the rear of the fire complex. And so is that going to be continued in the new design? Like Sidell Drive could have ended up right at the back of the old fire halls, or the new fire hall. So is that something that is going to be existing on the new plan?
Yes, Your Worship. So it won't be a formal year-round access. There is an emergency access, though, a secondary route through the emergency hub lands. So the primary access will be from Sunnydale Street. However, there will be an emergency access if there's ever an issue that the road was ever closed, or if it was impassable, that there would be a drivable road to the emergency hub lands for emergency vehicles to access or for the residents to egress.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I understand, and I can appreciate that the Manortown subdivision has made accommodations to allow that temporary or emergency entrance to the back of the property to be accessible to the municipality. So that's great, Nick. Thank you. Members of council, any questions to Nick in regards to this stop up and closure direction? Yes, Councillor Deneen, go ahead.
Not important or anything. I just was curious, when we're stopping it up, are they going to put the name Sidell back into our list of names to be used again?
That is an excellent question, because we would then be eliminating the name, wouldn't we? Nick or Mara, yes. Would you like to answer that question about the disposition of the name Sidell Drive?
Yes, so I can speak to that as well. So typically, yes, Sidell Drive would no longer be a recognized road name. It'd be up to council to see if they'd like to update the existing list of historic street names that was created in 2011 to re-include it in the selectable list. The applicants have currently selected Ferguson Way as well as Manor Drive as the new street names. Those were approved through council previously, with Sidell Drive being taken out. And I think Mara has a point to add to that.
Go ahead, Mara.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Also, we tried to do some research on where the name Sidell came from. Was it actually a family name in Stayner or somewhere in Clearview? And we couldn't find out. What we thought it probably is. So if anybody out there in Clearview world can hear me and knows, let us know. But what we think was that some of the original developers, so there was a gentleman named Sid Charisma, who is an engineer who I actually know, and we think that the Sid was from Sid Charisma, and the L might have been from Bell, or I'm trying to remember, Nick, if you can remember, but there were two people involved. So it was actually a combination of two names that weren't necessarily a family name here. So we're not sure that it really needs to go back into the pool, because there may be other names that are more prominent families in Clearview that maybe would be better than a name that was merged together like that.
That's an excellent answer. And again, if there's anyone in our community who knows something about the name Sidell or has any comment on that, or any name that could be put on any roads in our township, we're always interested in hearing those recommendations, and council can work with the staff to amend the list of names. So thank you for that. That's good information. And thank you for that information or that question, Councillor Janine. Any other members of council with any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, Nick. Mara, don't go away. Thank you, Nick. I'll appreciate that. We're going to call.
Thank you, Worship.
You've heard the motion. I've got a mover and seconder, so I'm going to call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. I've asked Mara to stay with us because Mara sent me a note. She would like to clarify an answer she gave a moment ago. Mara?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So to Councillor McKechnie, the question that you had regarding the BIA on the vending bylaw. So I wanted to double check because I think I misspoke. Well, and so the actual bylaw section, which isn't changing, reads, no vendor shall be permitted within the area defined in Schedule B of this bylaw surrounding the Creemore Business Improvement Area jurisdiction as established by council bylaw without a recommendation approving the location by the Creemore BIA. So that's actually how it reads. So the BIA does get to determine the location of any vending. So they do have quite an influence on that, on the approval. So I wanted to make sure that I clarified that.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mara. Appreciate that. All right, council, we're moving on to Parks, Recreation, and Culture. Actually, it says Parks, Culture, and Recreation, not Park. Oh, sorry, there's something fuzzy on my screen just now. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, it's Terry. Hi, Terry. PRC 010, the Stainer Garden Club Memorandum of Understanding. Yes. Oh, sorry. I can't see here for a minute. I can't read properly, I guess. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township hereby one, receive PCR 010-2021, the Stainer Garden Club Memorandum of Understanding for information. And number two, pass a bylaw to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Stainer Garden Club. I have a mover and seconder on the motion, please. Broderick, Leishman, Mr. I don't know, Terry, did you want to say something there? I'm not sure if you can even speak right now.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess with your permission, I'd like to ask Ms. Murray to come forward and present the next two reports that are on the agenda, actually. On behalf of our department, and I make myself available to assist and ask or answer any questions that may come up.
All right, thank you, Terry. You can go away now. Hello there, Amanda.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Measures and members of council. Thank you, Terry. The first report's pretty straightforward. We've had a very long-standing and successful relationship with the Stainer Garden Club. They work very closely with our team to ensure the beautification of downtown Stainer. But we are lacking a formal agreement. So one of our goals this past year has been to formalize some of these arrangements. So that is the intent of the Memorandum of Understanding. And I just like to acknowledge that Leslie Martell is the current club president, and she's very supportive of our ongoing relationship and ensuring that we have an MOU. It's a good, prudent business practice moving forward. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Amanda. I had a brief conversation with Leslie today on the phone. It was really nice to chat with her. Any members of council with any questions to Amanda or that fellow in the blue shirt? Go ahead, Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Worship. Not a question, just to say that the hardworking club was out doing their flowers in the Fountain Park and at the Gazebo Park over the weekend. So hats off to the Stainer Club for their hard work and their efforts in keeping and their volunteering hours to keep things looking really beautiful in those areas. I do question, maybe not to this, is anything happening with regards to the Stainer Garden Club and their fountain? They were going to talk about that. Is that something that's still being looked into, or has that kind of fallen away?
Terry or Amanda?
Yep, I can answer that. Thank you, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Walker. Yes, it is ongoing. COVID has had an impact on their supplier that they were looking at a couple of years ago. It's still in the works. They still want to repair it. We may have to do a further investigation on the base. There may be some other wear and tear on the base of the fountain. If you recall, the club only wanted to change the top part of the fountain and not the whole base. So we may have to investigate that a little further, but yes, the project is still ongoing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, anybody else with any questions? I'll just give a comment. Thank you very much to Amanda and Terry for negotiating this and to get this started. We're really happy to work with volunteers in our community that are helping out like this. So thank you for that and good job. Members of council, you've got a motion. You've got a mover and seconder on the motion. I'm prepared to call it. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Amanda, you're going to join us for our Healthy Initiatives comment as well. Thank you. PCR 011, Canada Healthy Communities Initiative Round 2. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1. Receive PCR 011 2021, Canada Healthy Communities Initiative Round 2 report for information. And item 2, approve the grant application for the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative Round 2 in the amount of $118,000 for the Centennial Park Trailhead and Park Amenities Project, commencing April 2021 until June 30, 2022. All right, mover and seconder on this motion for the grant, Mr. Broderick and Councillor Deneen. Amanda, would you like to make comment on this?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And again, it's pretty straightforward in the report. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful with the first round of funding. Council may recall we applied for the full $250,000 to support the downtown beautification project. However, it was a very competitive grant application. There were over $3 million in subscription, and they only had a $1 million fund for round 1. So in talking with the community foundations, we've identified that by repositioning our project so that it's focused in on very specific park amenities and supporting the healthy communities component, we perhaps could be more successful with round 2. Certainly no guarantee. So therefore, we're still applying for the same project, but just re-identifying certain components, including the park amenities, the trail and park landscaping, additional park benches, and supporting active transportation by way of installing bike racks. So the application would only be for $118,000. However, the full project would still be moving forward. So happy to answer any questions related to this report.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Terry. Is there any questions to our staff regarding this grant application? Yes, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Amanda. So Amanda, I'm a little bit confused here. I'm having a look at your report. The grant, okay, the grant deadline is June 25th, 2021, and projects will be awarded funding by April 20th, or by April of 2021. So are you saying that projects will be backdated to April of 2021? Is that it?
Yes, Your Worship. Yes. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor McKechnie, yes. So projects that had commenced in April will be backdated. So any project costs incurred to date will be eligible, providing the entire project is completed by June 30th, 2022. So now that I've reread that sentence, it does seem to be a bit confusing, but that is the intent of it. It's for projects from April until next June. That's one of the reasons why we had to come with the report, because it spans over 2 fiscal budget years.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions from members of council? All right, thank you very much, Amanda. Good luck. I hope we get that. So council, I'm prepared to call the motion here any minute, if you're all ready. Just checking, making sure. Okay, all those in favor? That carries, thank you. Take care, Terry. See you later. All right, council, we have our CAO's report, which is actually kind of a significant little document here. I have to tell you, I was very impressed to read this and see what a great collection of information we have here. So Mr. CAO, I have the report. I'll read it, look for a mover and seconder. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive the Clearview 2020 Annual Report for information. A mover and seconder on this report. Deneen and Walker, thank you. Mr. CAO, do you have any comments about it? It's a lot of information.
I can't take credit for putting it together. It was put together previously by other folks, but there's a couple of things in there that I think jump out as creative and good for the community. The 300 kits that were given out to youth to keep them involved during COVID and keep them connected in the community, I think is a great idea, and our recreation department deserves a lot of praise for that. And I think overall, just all the stuff that was accomplished last year leading into 2021, and the pandemic being new to everybody and all the different experiences that you would have to have. And I think the role that the township took in communicating. Sorry, that's rain coming down again. It's been coming down in sheets, very loud. I would say that in some of the establishments, you put safe distance markings on the floor with the Clearview logo. I thought that was very creative, very puts the township out there in front of the community and front and center. So I thought some very neat ideas were created during COVID. I'll cut off because that's probably bothering the staff.
We got you covered. I appreciate that. And members of council, have you had any questions to the CAO about the report? Any members? Yes, Councillor McKechnie, go ahead.
Sorry, everyone. I know apparently there's a hockey game on tonight, so I'll try and keep it brief. So, that was a great report, actually. And, I think this is the first year, I think, that we've had a report like that. So it was a super report. Matter of fact, I uploaded it to my computer to keep it handy because, when people complain and, part of our job as counselors is to defend staff. And I think often the public, they don't realize, all the good things that staff does. So that was a great report. But to the CAO, John, I'm going to put you on the spot here. And what do you think we can be doing as a council to be a better council? Any idea from what you've seen so far? Do you have any recommendations? And maybe it's unfair to put you on the spot with that. And if so, just say so. But I'm going to put the same question to our new clerk in a few weeks.
I've been working on a list of recommendations here for.
Yeah. But do you see anything glaring that maybe we can improve on as a council?
It's a great question, and it's not easy being a counselor, and I understand that. The most important thing is you're working together here at any open meeting of council and any in-camera meeting of council. It's the integrity of the body, and that's really important for counselors. And so recognizing the integrity of the body is not always easy to do because council doesn't always necessarily agree with each other. But when they finally make a decision, I think it's important that the body stays together, and it keeps counselors out of the glue, so to speak, and keeps the municipality and the integrity of the council body intact. So that's one thing I always try to work towards. There's various things you can do in order to make that happen, but your power and your authority exists when you're at the meeting, at a convened meeting, and that's the important thing to remember. And I think most of you have that. There's so many different issues that can draw you into the community. There's bylaws, there's rezoning. And those are times when you're really a judge sitting on a board, and you have to maintain a non-biased approach. You can have opinions, but you still have to maintain an open mind. And there's so many of those, we call them treacherous areas that a counselor may find themselves in as a result of interacting with the community and what things can happen. And but from what I see, this council has a good head on their shoulders generally, and they know how to conduct themselves accordingly. So I've been impressed with this council. Even when I applied for the job, I was impressed watching the meetings and watching the interactions. You don't always agree, and that's not necessary, but I find that you're respectful of one another, and I think that's a real positive.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, often we don't agree and we butt heads every so often, but we are respectful of one another. And so I think going forward, I'm looking forward to dealing with you and getting more advice and input from you, along with our new clerk, Sasha, and just seeing how we can improve, or how I can improve maybe as a counselor going forward. And so thank you very much for your report. And as I say, I've I'm saving it. It's going to come in very handy, I think, in the future. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor McKechnie. I see Walker, I believe, was up first. Is that right, Rob? And then Tom? Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. But first of all, thank you to you and the rest of the staff that put that report together. To me, that was just a great, valuable information session for the year, summary of a year. My question is, how do we get this into the hands of the public? I think we need to, I know COVID is stopping that at this point, but I think we need to get that out to the public so the public can review that and see just what does go on, what a year's summary is all about. And I think we need to put that out there to show them what goes on and how it works.
I concur. Mr. CAO, could you outline perhaps a communications plan? I mean, will we be printing a bunch of them and then maybe doing some availability through social media, perhaps all three of our websites, which is the Clearview website, of course, Discover Clearview, as well as the Clearview Public Library site? Is that something we could do?
I think so. Let me ask staff and see what we can do in order to get that information to the public as best as we can.
All right, thank you. It's good advice, though, Councillor Walker. I appreciate that. Mr. Patterson's next. I'm looking for anybody else. Tom, go ahead.
Question asked by Walker and answered by John, so thanks very much.
Oh, great. There you go. Well, I'm really hopeful to see it printed soon. I think it'd be great to have hard copies here. And again, when the building opens up, or perhaps on the table at our farmers market, it might be available there for distribution. So
I'd like to, Your Worship, if I could, just to thank the staff for putting that together. A lot of effort went in by all the other people. I did not put that together, and I don't deserve to get credit for it. I want to pass that credit on to our staff, and I think they did a tremendous job as well. Absolutely.
And by the way, that speaks very highly, to Councillor McKechnie's point about how can we do better. Having a senior management team like we have that work very well together is also very complementary to the way this corporation and this community operates. So we're really happy for that too. Thank you, sir. We have a mover and seconder on this motion. A good discussion. I appreciate everybody's input. We'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Council, we're on to Public Works PW 025 line painting. Recommendation. Be it resolved. Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one. Award a tender number 2021-09 to Midwestern Line Striping Inc. in the amount of $51,570.49, includes HST, for line painting services. Can I have a mover and seconder on the motion? Roderick, Walker, and can I ask hello there, Mr. Perot, have you got any comments you'd like to add to the report?
Hey, Your Worship, just want to point out that, the council's efforts on extending the budget on this line item, we were able to include 75 kilometers of yellow center line road painting, which included in this tender. Different, first time that Clearview is going to be doing that. And then also we're going to have some stop blocks with the tails at a lot of our rural intersections that don't have paint at them now. So those are two items that were approved at council 2021 budget, and we've implemented that. Contractor's very eager to get going on this work, so we should see some results fairly soon, I believe.
Perfect. And further, we have done work, or Midwestern Line Striping has done work for this township in the past, so we have confidence in the contractor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Any questions to Dan in regards to we got some cards. Councillor Patterson, you're first.
Yeah, so totally agree with this traffic calming measure, and I'm glad to see it. There is a perception, I think we probably all heard this. Some people don't like seeing the center line because our country road will then start to look like a highway. And actually the opposite is the same. Our narrow roads, Dan has said this several times, our narrow roads without a line become narrower with a line, and that impacts, and that's a proven statistic, the perception of how safe the road is to drive. And it does have for most people a calming effect. In other words, slowing down, being more observant, especially with there's pedestrians and cyclists. So I applaud this. I'm wondering if we can do a little advert, just a public awareness program of the benefit of this, as opposed to just letting it happen. Because we're teaching people what we're trying to do in terms of calming traffic in Clearview.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Excellent comments. The other point about the lines down the middle too, it's also, we think often when we're doing any planning or designing of anything, we always think of perfect weather conditions, and yet a line down the middle of a road on a foggy night will help you get home, won't it? So it's an important thing to have there too. So I'm happy that that's something we're doing here. Councillor McKechnie is next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Dan, I just have one question here. Let me pull up the agenda here. It said for the center line, you've got requires, I think, a layout. I don't have it up here right now. I was looking at something else. Requires a layout. What do you mean requires a layout? I was just curious on that. Let me. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor McKechnie. Thank you, Councillor McKechnie. Through the mayor. The layout basically just is that the machine, so that it's a pretty big painting machine that goes down the road. There has to be pre-marked because we don't have any paint marks currently. It needs to be marked out. So wherever the center of the road is going to be, it needs to be pre-marked so that when the machine comes along, it knows where that center of the road is. So
okay.
it won't have to be done again once the line's on the road. So that's what it's pre-marked or laid out.
Okay, thanks.
Information. Was there another card too? Yes, there was. Councillor Lamers, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. How long do you expect this paint to last, Dan? 2 years, 3 years? And then next year you're going to pick on different roads to keep expanding your line painting?
Thank you, Councillor Lamers. Through you to Mayor, to Councillor Lamers. Yeah, it's hard to say. I suspect that the first coat of paint won't last too long. What I'm aware of is that it will likely fade or soak into the asphalt fairly quickly. So we may need to redo it again next year, and then maybe every other year. It all depends on how well it lasts through till next year. So I know that the paint in high traffic areas like the main intersection, Tim Hortons 27 or at 26 and 42, that paint doesn't last too long. It doesn't make it through a winter. So it would just have to play it by ear, and hopefully in the 2022 budget, council will allot for some additional funds and we can expand the program and perhaps include edge lines on some of those roads as well. So the white edge lines.
Great. All right. Thank you very much, Dan. Anybody else with any questions? My question, you did mention 26 and sort of Main Street here in Stayner. Who is responsible for that intersection painting, by the way, Dan? Is that fall underneath the municipality of Clearview?
That is correct, Your Worship. We're responsible for the areas through the connecting link. So basically from Mowat Street all the way to the main intersection, then north on 26 to kind of the Stayner limits. We're responsible for that, and the county actually paints on the county roads, but they don't paint on the highways.
Fair enough. I was aware of that. I just wanted to make sure that I was aware of it correctly. So thank you for that. Members of council, we've got a mover and seconder on the question. If there's nothing further, I'll call a motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. That carries. All right, Dan, we've got one more here from you. Tender 2021-10, microsurfacing. Recommendation be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, award tender number 2021-10 to Duncor Enterprises, Inc. in the amount of $163,262.40, including HST, for microsurfacing. Can I have a mover and seconder on this motion? Lamers and Broderick. Lamers and Broderick. And Dan, have you got any comments about surfacing.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, this is Council gave additional funds for this line item in the 2021 operating budget for patching. Again, something that's not new in the industry, but possibly new to the municipality is microsurfacing. The county uses it a lot on some of their county roads. Basically, it'll look like a paved road after it's done. It's a black slurry product with sand and some emulsion, and that just gets into the cracks and crevices of a road to extend its life potentially over time. So I did do some fairly extensive consulting on different areas of different roads that could benefit. And the 9th concession between Centerline Road and County Road 10 seemed to be maybe at the top of its limit on getting that or resurfacing, but we're gonna give it a shot, hold it in there, and try to get a few more years out of that road.
All right. Thank you very much. Any members of council, any questions? Oh, go ahead, Tom.
And just a quick one. I thought I knew what this was. Is it just filling the cracks, or is it a slurry that goes across the whole travel portion?
Through your council, Mayor Measures, sorry, to Councillor Patterson. Yeah, it's a surface. It's a slurry that goes across the whole width of the road.
The reason I ask is we all travel the Brentwood, from Brentwood to Angus, and that's a very noticeable on the curb side of the road. It looks like it's peeling away. That's the only place I see it. Is that microsurfacing? And maybe it was a bad job.
I believe so, and I believe that is microsurfacing, and there have been incidences of that it peels off the road. It just may be when they put it down, how they put it down, what the conditions are like. But there have been incidences that coming up over time, and it is a highly traveled road on that Brentwood Road. So perhaps the 9th will hold it better. I think it needs to dry as well, so maybe not as much traffic on it at the start.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate Councillor Lamers giving us a good smile during that discussion. Thank you for that. Is there any other members of council with any questions? All right, thank you, Dan, for your report of council. You've got a mover and seconder on the report. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you, Dan. Finance is up, which is in regards to our OPP license extension and amending agreement. So this has to do with the agreement for the OPP to use some of our facilities at the hub. So I'll read this and then I'll look for a mover and seconder. Be it resolved, the Council of Township Clearview hereby 1, receive FIN 015-2021 OPP license extension and amending agreement. Report for information. Item number 2, pass bylaw 21-50 to enter into a license extension amending agreement for the OPP to continue to use a portion of the Clearview Simcoe Joint Emergency Facility. And can I have a mover and seconder? Oh, sorry, and authorize the mayor and clerk and director of legislative services to sign the agreement on behalf of the Township of Clearview. So can I have a mover and seconder on this motion? Where are we at? Broderick, seconder, Deneen, and hello, Kelly. Any comments or comments, Kelly, in regards to the agreement?
I apologize for the lateness or the length of the report, Your Worship, and the length of the resolution. This is just simply the OPP lease at the hub, the emergency center. It's just extending it for 5 years and then giving them one option to renew. So,
fair enough.
Questions?
Okay, no problem. Is there any questions to our staff from any members of council in regards to this? All right, seeing none, thank you, Kelly, and I will call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. Now we have the medical center lease renewals. This is actually an extended 2021 through 2023. All right, council. Recommendation be it resolved the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive the 2020 and 2023 medical center lease renewal report for information. Item number 2 is approve a 0% increase in the Creemore Medical Center lease rates effective October 1, 2020 for the period of October 1, 2020 to September 30, 2021. Item 3 is approve a 2% increase in the Creemore Medical Center lease rates for each subsequent year effective October 1st, 2021 for the period October 1st, 2021 to September 30, 2023. Item 4, direct the treasurer to prepare the updated lease agreements for the Creemore Medical Center tenants. And item 5, authorize the mayor and the clerk director of legislative services to sign the leases on behalf of the Township of Clearview once they are signed by the tenants. Okay, a mover and seconder on this important motion. Where are we at? Councillor, wow, they're all up there. Councillor Patterson, Councillor Leishman. Kelly, do you want to brief us on this? It's pretty straightforward what's in here. And the number of tenants that we have there, obviously this will have to be marched around to each of the tenants to make sure they get their signatures or DocuSign service, whatever we use. And Kelly, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Maple Leaf and I worked fairly closely on this. The normal increase per year is 3%, but we thought at this time it might be better to follow the same suit council's been following along, and that was the 0% increase for 2020, and then the 2% for the 2 subsequent years with the intent to go back to the 3 after that.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. So thank you for that report, and thank you for the conscientious effort there in regards to 2020. Any members of council, any comments or questions to Kelly or the CAO in regards to this? All right, seeing none. Thank you. I'm prepared to call the motion. You got a mover and seconder. All those in favor? And that motion carries unanimous again. Thank you very much. And Kelly, here's the one we've been waiting for, and that is the budget package. All right, recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive the 2021 budget package for information. And item number 2, repeal tax rate bylaw 21-49. And item 3, pass tax rate bylaw 2158 with a net tax increase of 1.56%. A mover and seconder on this motion, please. Broderick, second. McKechnie. Kelly, first of all, I just want to mention the budget package was very well put together. I enjoyed reading it, and it was well prepared. And frankly, I think we're doing pretty well here at the township with our communication staff, Mr. CAO, working with our various department heads, putting together these great reports, like the annual report as well as this budget package. So, Kelly, have you got any comments on the package?
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually can't take all the credit on this one. My predecessor, Edward Henley, had a lot to do with the original setup on it. So it is a little bit shorter. And if there's something council would like to see in there for next year's, please let me know. But yeah, we're in at the 1.56. So that was exciting to see at the end of the day.
For sure. And I think it's also notable that throughout the report, if you look at some of the graphics, particularly some of the pie charts that indicate where tax dollars are, first of all, collected as revenue. It's interesting to note that we, rely heavily on obviously tax revenue from property taxes, but there are other sources such as services that people pay for, and there are some grant funding, particularly our gas tax funding. It's one of the grants that is regularly supporting our regular income. And so the pie charts are very helpful, and they help people understand where the money comes from and then where we actually spend it. So it's a good tool to take a look at. Simple communications. Any member of council with any questions to Kelly or the CAO in regards to the document? Yes, go ahead, Tom, and then Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, no, actually, Kelly, I would like to give you some credit for this, because as the person that picked this up, it probably was, you thought about, it's a massive document, and it's a very good document. And I find it a tremendous reference document. It really helps when people take an interest, usually in very short order. They want an answer, and there's a lot of information there. So I appreciate you taking it on. And of course, during the budget, if we've got some changes, to help you out with that. But I like the document. It works, and appreciate you taking it forward. Thanks.
Good comments, Councillor Patterson. Thank you. Councillor McKechnie, I believe you're next. Anybody else? Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Kelly. Yes, great document, and once again, I uploaded that for future reference. But were we going to get a hard copy of that at all? I think maybe Councillor Walker had talked about that a while ago. But I was just wondering if we could get a hard copy, because it is sort of nice to have something in our hands to look at. The second question that I have, the 1.56% increase, tax increase. I'm actually quite proud of that. When I ran for council, one of the platforms of my campaign was that try and hold the line on taxes, not to say zero taxes, but try and keep them down as low as possible. And I think the last 3 years we've come in pretty much under the inflation rate, or so we certainly haven't been over the inflation rate in the last 3 years as far as an overall taxes and such go. So I'm pretty proud of that. So well done, Kelly, and if it's possible to get a hard copy of that budget package, if you're doing any, I'd appreciate one. So.
Through Your Worship to Councillor McKechnie, I do have plans to at least have them available at the office, and I will definitely get council a copy. I was right on the line getting this into the budget or into the agenda. So if I printed a hard copy, I think Brenda probably would have beaten me to death with it. So I kind of let her relax for a little bit, and I will get those out to you. I'll be back in the office next week, so I'll make sure I get the printed in and out to you.
No hurry. Anytime in the next year is fine. So there's no hurry.
By the way, the printer in our office is right there, sort of in the middle. And if we're going to print that many documents, it's noisy and a long process, so it's good to get it done sometime when it's maybe after hours or something like that. Anyway, good enough. All right. Has anybody else have any questions or comments to Kelly and or the CAO? All right. Thank you, Kelly, for all the work on this, and I appreciate all your work on our budget every year, every day. Members of council, you've got the motion in front of you. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you. All right, council, we are on to our fire department. This is the discussion about new station number 6 tanker truck. Chief Payment has joined us once again. Hello, Chief. Recommendation, be it resolved. The council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive new Station 6 Nottawa tanker truck report for information. And item number 2, approve the purchase of the new apparatus with a single source purchase from Midwest Fire Apparatus. And item number 3, approve the sale of Pump 7 as surplus after delivery of the new tanker truck. Okay, there's a lot of things to unwrap in here. Can I have a mover and seconder on this? I'll go with Broderick and Walker. There's a few other people there, but I'll go with Broderick and Walker. Mr. Chief there, Mr. Payment, can you outline for us, first of all, in your report, you talked about it moving from a sort of a squad type truck to a tanker truck. Can you outline some of those items for us?
Certainly, Your Worship. So, just kind of as an overview, for those of you that recall in my budget presentation, this truck was due to be replaced in 2023. Due to the 18-month build time, this would certainly line up the purchase as originally prescribed. As for your question with relation to changing the truck types, one of the things that's kind of been looked at over the last little while specifically to the Nottawa area, is the lack of reliable hydrant protection. So although there is some municipal and private water systems that do exist within that area, most are not adequate for firefighting. So due to that, coupled with the size of some of the homes, in addition to the length of some of the driveways in that area, water has certainly become very important for us. So by switching the truck type from a squad to a tanker, it allows us to move the existing tanker over to a squad to maintain that consistency, and it's going to add 2,500 gallons of water to the station. So in essence, we're going to go from 2,900 gallons to 4,600 gallons of water as an initial response. In doing so, by changing the truck type, just due to the working parts on the different types of trucks, it's going to save approximately $150,000 by putting a tanker truck in there as opposed to putting in a pumper truck.
All right. And if I may, I'd like to ask just a question in regards to the single source purchase of Midwest Fire Apparatus. Can you outline that for us?
Absolutely. So we have purchased over the last several years, since 2014, 3 Midwest apparatus. Originally, when we did make the initial purchase, they did come in as not the lowest bidder. However, they did come in as very competitive bid. Through the years, we've built a very good relationship with the company. The service that they've provided is excellent, as well as it's certainly helping us streamline the consistent design for the apparatus itself. So based on the history, it certainly seems as though it's a good direction to go moving forward.
All right, those are my questions. So I'll leave it open to any members of council with any questions to the chief or the CAO on this report. Okay, Councillor McKechnie and then Patterson. Go ahead.
I beat him, Rory. Thank you, Rory. Your worship, to you through the chief. Okay, we have the tanker truck. So that goes out to a call, and you said it's going to have like 4,900 gallons of water. So how long will it take to empty that truck? And then I assume that what happens then that other tankers come in from other stations. By the time that truck gets emptied, there should be other tankers from other stations with more water. Is that the way that it works?
Yeah, so I guess more or less, what you want to do is if you want to just take a really basic number, okay, if you look at about 250 liters to we'll say 500 liters a minute, 125 gallons a minute type of thing. That's going to determine the amount of water that you have available to you. Okay, so just in some basic figuring. Obviously, the type of fire, the size of fire is certainly going to dictate how quickly that water disappears. But our standard residential fires, for simple math, if you want to look at about 125 gallons a minute is how we're going to kind of determine that. With that being said, yes, our trucks are dispatched on a computer-aided dispatch system, otherwise known as a CAD. And when we are going to fires and alarm calls, there certainly is multiple apparatus that do respond into that area. So for a structure fire response, you would see about 5 or 6 trucks that would head to that area. Of course, one of the issues that we do have as well with the Ottawa area is just its remote location to the other stations. A lot of times when stations 5 in Singhampton, so your station and station 1 in Stayner respond, they're often driving through the Ottawa area to get to the far side, if you will. So one of the things that's also happened over the last 2 years is Collingwood has gotten rid of their tanker trucks. So in the past, where we had the ability to call them for mutual aid to get a little bit more water quickly, that's disappeared. So this is, again, kind of one more step to prolong things, sustain that water until the help can arrive.
Okay, and a follow-up question, if I may. So, Rory, I think a couple of years ago you were talking at our budget meeting about there was some difficulty in keeping our firefighters licensed on some of this equipment. I mean, to drive it, having the proper licenses to drive it. Do we still have that difficulty? Are most of our firefighters licensed to drive these trucks?
Through your worship to Councillor McKechnie. Yeah, it was, you're certainly barking up the right tree there. The issue was getting them licensed, not keeping the license, but getting them licensed. And due to the high turnover that we've certainly had over the years, it's been somewhat difficult. So the deputy chief is actually, one of his first projects that he was handed when he took over the role was to develop a new DZ program, and he has certainly done so. So we have 8 personnel going through now, most of which are actually from the Ottawa station, and we do have some plans for an additional 4 to 6. So it's certainly something that we're working on, and it's actually a condition of their employment. When they are hired as paid on-call firefighters, it is in the contract that they sign that within 2 years of employment, they do need to obtain their DZ driver's license. So unfortunately, COVID did put a little bit of a hamper to that. However, the deputy chief has done a great job getting this program back on its feet again and ensuring that that's not going to be a problem moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor. Good questions. Councillor Patterson, I believe you're next. Is there somebody else? Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, Rory, besides the monetary advantages you highlighted, is there a fleet advantage, either operational or financial, by going to Midwest?
Through your worship, to Councillor Patterson. Outside, the biggest advantage that I tried to outline was just the consistency of trying to keep the apparatus the same. Just the ability to have staff, because they do kind of sometimes switch between trucks, having the ability for them to become familiar with the trucks a little bit easier. That's probably the #1 advantage with respect to fleet.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Is there anybody else? Yes, Councillor Lemers, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Rory, the chief. 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago, you got a tandem tanker truck. Wasn't that slated for Ottawa?
Through your worship, to Councillor Lamers, no. There was some truck shuffling that did occur there, but that tandem tanker truck did go to Creemore. It definitely was slated for Creemore, and that had to do with our tanker shuttle accreditation and the replacement of it. I'm sure you probably remember that Ford cab over that they had there. That essentially was the replacement for that. So in doing so, the 2008 Kenworths made its way up there. And it was just a recent truck shuffle over the last year or so that's seen the LaFrance from the Steiner station switch out with that truck. So no, everything that is there should have been there. There wasn't anything that was misdirected. No.
All right, thank you. And a good practice with staying with the same consistency with these pumps is vital.
Good advice. Excellent point, Councillor Lamers. Anybody else with any questions? I do have one small question for you, Chief. What's the expected return on the sale of Pump 7?
So
what that would be worth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Your Worship, based off the sale of, essentially we had 2 trucks that were identical. So at the time it was Pump 62 and Pump 52. Pump 62 became Pump 7, and we did sell Pump 50, or what was Pump 52 at the time. So about 4 years ago, the sale of that truck got us $30,000. So the anticipated sale price for the Pump 7, 4 years later, identical truck, is about $25,000.
Okay. I wasn't sure what that truck might be worth, so I wasn't sure. Anyway, thank you very much for your report and answering these questions of members of council. Is anybody else with anything further? All right. Okay, council, we do have a motion in front of us. It does have a single source purchase direction in it. Council, we would ask you to be clear in your votes on this, so there's no question about our discussion or our question about the support of this motion. So members of council, are you prepared to vote? I will call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous, and thank you very much. Thank you, Chief, and good luck with that. We are always interested to see what our volunteers are doing. And so thank you for that. All right, there's a little change here also. You have an FD 004. It's in regards to a service delivery change. So there's a little change in our operation. So let's discuss that. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive the service delivery change low angle slope rescue report for information. And item 2, approve the service delivery change to the establishing and regulating bylaw number 14-22. Okay, can I have a mover and seconder on this change? Where are we at? Councillor Leishman. All right, and Councillor Broderick. Councillor Leishman, Councillor Broderick. Rory, obviously a little change in operation. Can you outline this for us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Your Worship. So over the years, trail rescues and off-road rescues are certainly no stranger to the services that we offer. However, in light of COVID, and I'm sure most of you could probably agree, the use of our trail system has increased probably almost 100-fold. As a result of that, so too have our calls for service. And where in a typical year, we would probably do 3 to 4 trail rescues or off-road rescues a year. Last year, we did 20. And the trail systems are still as busy as ever. And, the anticipated fire service response out there is certainly going to be great as well. So in saying that, with those types of calls, they're still considered a low frequency, moderate risk call. We're not looking at the high angle type of responses. What we're looking at, and for those of you that are familiar with the trail system, we do have a lot of steep, but not vertical bluffs, cliffs, surfaces, crevices, things of that nature. And in an effort to try and improve the safety of both the responders and those that we're rescuing, it was determined that we do need to heighten the level of training and the equipment we do have to make these retrievals. The other thing that's going to do as well is it's going to greatly reduce the wait time. So currently, we do have service agreements with both the town of Blue Mountain and the city of Barrie for their technical services, both of which do include low and high angle rescue. So by moving to this model or this change in service delivery, if you will, this is certainly going to allow us to effect a rescue much quicker than if you have to wait for the town of Blue Mountains or the town of Barrie to arrive. So essentially what we're looking at here is just improving the safety of responders, improving the safety to those that we're rescuing in a much more timely manner.
Good description, and thank you for that update. Any members of council? Any questions of this change? Yes, Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed we had you said about 20 over the last year a bit. Is there any cost recovery opportunity for us from these rescues through either the NEC or the Bruce Trail or the county or whoever owns the trails or the individuals themselves? Is there any opportunity for cost recovery?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Walker, thank you. That's a good question. And this is, actually, I will say, pun intended, this is a bit of a slippery slope, if you will. And for those of you that were around for the cave rescue, one of the things that we did run into there, even though it did fall into the MVCA property, was they wanted to pass the bill on to the end user, i.e. the person that we had rescued. And council made the decision at that time not to pass the bill along, which was about $45,000. In a smaller scope, which, that's a very unusual type call. I certainly suspect that council could explore that option if they so chose. Most of those calls are probably, we're looking at a much smaller amount with respect to wages, or even if you went to an MTO billing rate per truck per use type of thing. They certainly do exist. However, we haven't ever really obtained any mileage out of the NVC or the NVCA or the Niagara Escarpment Commission. But it is something I guess we could probably look to explore a little bit farther if that was the direction of council, for sure.
All right, thank you for that response. Councillor Walker, anything further?
Yeah, just supplementary, Your Worship. I guess the part that I'm struggling with is the fact that I know COVID has necessity as people have put out for exercise, but these people that you're rescuing, most of them have no idea on the trail they're getting into, the type of topography, where they are, and whatever else. So we're spending a lot of time running around trying to find locations. No possible, I'm just leery that we're going to get caught someday running around trying to find somebody there when we're going to have a major fire in that area where we're struggling with timing to get to respond. So I just struggle with the idea that people aren't familiarizing themselves before they go out And this is what we're running into, a lot of problems.
Fair comment, Councillor Walker. I appreciate that. Rory, Chief, just as an idea, perhaps we could do some PSA work regarding the What 3 Words app, which is available for people to help find themselves when they're lost. The What 3 Words. Maybe we could do a little PSA work on that. And if not, maybe even provide some signage at some of our trails that indicate to people that they should be downloading that What 3 Words app. Chief, comment?
Yeah, Your Worship, I think both you and the councillor have made excellent comments there. I can speak to some work that I have tried to do with the Bruce Trail Committee in the past, and I have to say I was astounded at how difficult they were to work with respect to trying to create some GPS signage within their trail system. So yeah, I think specifically for public service announcements, 100%, especially as we're really getting into the season, I think that would be a fantastic idea. You know, I also agree with having, you know, some sort of signage or something at the entry points, maybe the most frequented ones that we do see. That's obviously going to be a bit of a process due to the fact that they're on, a lot of them are on private property. But I think, you know, with the right approach, it's pretty hard for somebody to deny posting the signs, trying to minimize any risk in the future. So for sure.
Good comment. Thank you. Anybody else with any comments about this change in program? All right. Then I'll just wrap it up by saying thank you very much for bringing the change. I think it's always important to review the services that are offered through our fire and emergency services department. So thank you for bringing that forward, and that's something that we can do and do well. So thank you for that. Members of council, I believe we have a mover and seconder on the motion. I'll look for your attention. All those in favor? Those opposed? All carried. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Chief. And council, we're now going to move on to our bylaws. We have a significant group of bylaws, and yeah, we've got several here. So let's start. Bylaw 21-50, an OPP license extension and amending agreement. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw 21-50, being a bylaw to enter into an OPP license extension and amending agreement, be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on the 31st day of March 2021. Can I have a mover and seconder on the bylaw? Where are we at? Councillor Broderick, Councillor Lamers. Can I call the bylaw? All those in favor? All right, the bylaw carries. Council, something we've been waiting for. Bylaw 21-53, to appoint a municipal clerk. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw 21-53, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal clerk, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 31st day of May 2021. Mover and seconder on this important bylaw, Leishman and Broderick. And if I can ask Clerk Helmke to join us for a moment. Nice to see you, Sasha. Welcome to Clearview. We're going to pass the bylaw. All those in favor? And there we go. That bylaw carries. Madam Clerk Helmke is going to be joining us as our full-time clerk. It's her first day today on the job. So we're really happy that you're joining us. And I also want to acknowledge our deputy clerk, Brenda, who has been doing amazing work for us here at the township. So thank you, Brenda, for your continued service. Sasha, anything you'd like to say?
All I can say is that it's official now, Your Worship. I'm excited to clerk the next meeting. It's great to be back at Clearview to work with an amazing team and council again. And I'm just happy to be given this opportunity to come back. So thank you, everyone.
Well done. We're happy to have you back. All right. Thank you, Sasha, our new clerk. Okay, council, appointment bylaw to amend the appointment bylaw number 19-06. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw 21-55, being a bylaw to amend the appointment bylaw 19-06, be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on the 31st day of May 2021. Can I have a mover and seconder on this bylaw? Mr. Broderick, Mr. Walker. Council, you've heard the bylaw. All those in favor? And the bylaw carries. And as always, I want to thank and acknowledge the work of our volunteers in our community. Thank you for serving your community. Okay, memorandum of understanding, the Stainer Garden Club. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw 2156, being a bylaw to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Stainer Garden Club, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 31st day of May 2021. Can I have mover and seconder on the memorandum? Where are we at? Councillor Lamers, Councillor Deneen. Lamers and Deneen. All right, council, you've heard the bylaw. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the bylaw carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to the last page. Stop up and close Sidell Drive. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw 2157, being a bylaw to stop up and close Sidell Drive, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 31st day of May 2021. Mover and seconder on the bylaw, please. Mr. Walker and Mr. McKechnie. Walker and McKechnie. And council, you've heard the bylaw. All those in favor? And the bylaw carries. Thank you. Council, number 2158. It's the 2021 tax rate bylaw. Be it resolved, bylaw number 2158 being a 2021 tax rate bylaw, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 31st day of May 2021. The mover and seconder on this bylaw. Mr. Broderick, Mr. McKechnie. Council, you've heard the bylaw on the tax rate bylaw. All those in favor? And that motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Council, another important appointment. Bylaw number 21-60. Recommendation be it resolved, bylaw 21-60 being a bylaw to appoint a bylaw enforcement officer, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 31st day of May 2021. You've heard the bylaw. Okay, we got a mover. That'd be Mr. Lamers, seconded by Councillor Broderick. Any questions? Yes, all those in favor? And that motion carries. We have a new bylaw enforcement officer. Welcome, Kevin Herod, to the Clearview team as well. Boy, the Christmas table is going to get bigger this year. If we can have a Christmas party, think about it. We got our staff all back, and it's going to be great. All right, council, those are the bylaws. Now we have notice of motion. Any notice of motion? Seeing none. Council, a notice to confirm the proceedings of our council meeting. Recommendation be it resolved, bylaw 21-59 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the May 31st, 2021 council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 31st day of May 2021. Mover and seconder on this confirmatory bylaw, please. McKechnie and Deneen. McKechnie and Deneen. And council, you've heard the bylaw. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the motion to confirm has passed. So I'm going to call for my motion to adjourn because I'm ready to leave. Okay, I got to get home and see a hockey game. Motion to adjourn. Recommendation be it resolved the council meeting be adjourned at 8:04 p.m. Mr. McKechnie, seconded. Oh, I'm looking for it. Councillor Deneen. Go ahead, Councillor Deneen. Oh yeah, here we go. Council, we're going to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Walker, you're the best. All the best, guys. Thank you.